to play. We've got stories for your day. From Onefinity, it's clear to see the finest CNC. It's the Cutting Edge Podcast. Let's take a flight.
Welcome to the Cutting Edge Podcast, presented by Onefinity CNC. I'm one of your hosts, Morgan Hop. You can call me Morgan. And joining me is...
I'm Stone from Stonefinity. And I don't have a cool shortened last name. That's just it.
Well, I'm not sure that your last name has ever been shown here or really much of anywhere. What is your last name? I know it, but this is for the listeners.
My last name is Willingham, but that doesn't mean I'm going to accept your Facebook request.
And that is a regal sounding name. You sound like French royalty.
Stone Willingham. Yeah, it's not French though. I'm actually from, my family came from England, so.
Well, nobody's perfect. So today's episode, we are talking about shows. And Stone just got back from a show. So Stone, do you want to tell us some more about that? I figured I would just dive right into this thing.
Yeah. So last week I went to IWF in Atlanta. We didn't have a booth or anything, but I went and walked the show, just kind of seeing, what's going on, what companies were there, doing some scouting. But it's always good, even if we don't have a booth, to go to a show and to connect with people and to see the people that we're already working with, maybe some companies. Spent a lot of time with Surf Prep, Harvey, and I also got to do some other things. Like I got to demo the Shaper, which was cool. They're sort of in the same space as us, but not really. So that was cool just to get my hands on that. And like I said, really the biggest thing for this show was just getting to go out and to connect with some people, do some networking. But maybe we'll have a booth there at that show here in a couple of years.
So IWF is one of those. So that's in Atlanta.
Yep.
IWF is like the first show that I ever had the opportunity to go to. So in my last job, IWF was going to be the first show that I went to. And so it's kind of just weird how it all kind of worked out. I started my last job. I'm not going to mention who it was here because it's really of no consequence, but we had a booth there and I was supposed to be there, but my daughter was due, or my wife was due to have my daughter within a few days of that show. So I think that year it was supposed to be the 22nd or 23rd. And my daughter was due on the 20th. And so they were like, and it was like, I had just started there. I was there maybe, I started in, I literally started like 2 weeks before.
Oh man.
And they're like, oh, we got this show coming up. We're and I was like, I don't think I can go. I'm like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I've got, like, if the baby comes, like just a few days early, which happens all the time, I can't be in Atlanta while my child is being born. I just can't do that.
That wouldn't go over well with the wife for sure.
No, certainly would not. So that, and they were cool. They were like, okay, that's fine. Like you don't have to go. And so they do IWF every other year. It's IWF in Atlanta. And then the next year it'll be AWFS in Vegas. And they just alternate every year. And just through random circumstance, that was in 2018. Since that time, they do it every other year. There's been one reason or another that I could not go to IWF. So I've never, ever been to IWF. I've been to a bunch of AWFSs in Vegas, but never IWFS.
I should have taken you with me. I wish you'd have said something.
I just said that all wrong. IWF. No, I would love to have gone, but it's one of those. Well, Tell us more about the show, because like y'all asked me about it if I'd ever been. I said no, but I do kind of have like a general understanding of what the show is like, what it's about, just based on having been to AWFS so many times. And so it's more of a like an industrial type of show. There's less they're there, but there's less of a presence for smaller consumer brands. It's much more of a large cabinet, large production shop type of show.
Yeah, I mean, so I walked in the door the first day, and if you don't know, it is at the Georgia World Congress Center, which is just a giant. Basically, it's just three giant conference halls where they have all sorts of trade shows and stuff like IWF come in. But I walked in and I came in through building C, which was set up kind of as the hardware and materials building. So there was a lot of, lumber companies or siding companies, things like that. A lot of cabinet hardware geared towards, big industries that are making furniture on a large scale, where like IKEA and things like that. So I didn't really spend a lot of time in that room, obviously, just because it was mostly material and hardware and things that we at Onefinity are not really too invested in. The other two rooms, however, were more so, the large manufacturing machinery. There was a lot of automated systems there. I would say that was the biggest thing. And it obviously, the way things are going in this industry, everything is moving towards automation. There were some of these CNCs are like the size of houses. It's crazy. But they are taking sheet goods and they're cutting out full cabinets and things like that. So it's taking everything that we do to a much larger scale. There were a lot of smaller CNC companies, I would say, even smaller than Onefinity. So that was it was not comforting, but it was, it was, what's the word I'm looking for, Morgan? Encouraging, I guess, to see that these smaller companies were also here and people were wanting to go and see those smaller machines, because a lot of the people there are in the manufacturing industry. But at the same time, there's a lot of individuals there who don't need, a $200,000 or $300,000 CNC machine. They just want something that they can use in their garage. So some smaller companies like ourselves were there. The thing I really enjoyed the most, I think, was going and meeting up with our partners. So the first partner I'll talk about was Surf Prep, because they were kind enough to help me out with getting a ticket late to the game. I actually didn't decide I was going to go until about a week before the show. So shout out to Surf Prep. As you guys know, they make awesome sanders and vacuums that a lot of you are using in your shops. Can't say enough about them. They're just good people. They're good to work with, and they make a great product. The next thing I would say was I spent a lot of time with Harvey, who is also one of our partners. Now, we've been working with Harvey for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years now. But Jeremy, who does their social media and stuff like that, he has been a Onefinity user from the very beginning. He was one of the first, I want to say like first 150, 200 machines that we ever made. He bought one of those himself and uses it in his shop still. So it was really good to finally meet up with him and spend some time with him, kind of get the insight on all the new Harvey stuff. And they have some really, really cool products that you guys are definitely going to want to check out whenever they hit the market. They had this new bandsaw that was incredible. I just don't know how to put it. I just got one of their bandsaws a few months ago, but it's just got so much tech on it, which obviously there's going to be people that say, tech on a tool isn't a good thing. But at the same time, like you think about, people have not been innovating in that space for 50, 60 years or more. A bandsaw has just kind of been a bandsaw, and they're doing some really cool stuff with that. So it's cool to see how Other companies are innovating too, not just Onefinity. That also kind of, gives you some ideas about maybe what things you could do to change your machine or your setup, and things for us to innovate with. So that's always good. But really, like I said, the biggest thing, it all just comes back to interacting with people, and that's what all shows are about.
And and that's something that we're going to be getting into next week is tech in the woodworking space.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this, I mean, that's a rabbit hole that I've been thinking about it for the last couple of days, because we decided a few days ago that we were going to be talking about, I'll just put it out
Just
there.
make them wait.
Yeah. Well, we're going to make them wait. We're not going to get into it right now, but next week's episode, we're going to be talking about, is CNC actually woodworking? Is using a CNC woodworking? And that seems to be kind of a polarizing topic. Some people just, will say up and down, no, it's not, it's cheating. And there's definitely two sides of that argument and not a whole lot of middle ground. So we're going to dig into that next week. But for this week, we are talking about shows. And Atlanta is one of those places that Workbench Con is also in Atlanta. And our good buddy Hamilton is in Atlanta. And that is where kind of a side by invitation only show is
Hambench Con. So we usually go stay with him a couple days before Workbench Con. And last week, while I was down there for IWF, I stayed with him. And I just would like to report that the Hambench Con sign is still up and has not been altered. So I told Ham's wife to just leave it, and then she'd be ready for next year. So I think it's going to stay.
It's kind of like leaving your Christmas tree up all year long. So like,
exactly.
It's not you, like, you're not a procrastinator. Like you're not lazy for leaving your tree up. You are proactive because you are 365 days ahead of the game by just leaving it up. That's what I say, because I don't like taking down decorations, because I know I'm just going to have to put them back up 365 days later.
I'm not going to lie. I don't even have a Christmas tree, but
yeah, they're overrated. Just put the presents out on the floor. Like, what do you need a tree for?
That's a good point. I don't have a kid to do the Santa thing with. So
I'll tell you right now, like, she could care less about the tree. She cares about the presents. If there was no tree, but there were a bunch of gifts for her on the floor on Christmas morning down there, she would not care. She would not miss the tree one bit. She does not care about a tree.
So, getting back into the
let's get back on topic, huh?
Yeah. Sorry, we have a tendency to do that. But no, so the shows, going back to kind of talking about shows, obviously IWF is a lot larger scale than most of the shows we're doing, but it does have its place. So
there's like a few thousand people that come to that one, right?
I think there's probably more than that, honestly, because I mean, there were people that I knew were at the show and like actively looked for, but if you don't just coordinate with people, I mean, there's almost no way to just run into somebody.
It's that big, huh?
On purpose. I mean, it's huge. I mean, there's, like I said, there's 3 exhibition halls, and each of them are probably the size of 2 football fields. So,
oh yeah,
when you think about all of that, and you've got it broken up into 3 buildings with multiple ways to get to each building, I got lost at least 10 times. And it was, going from places where I thought I knew where I was going. You look at your maps and things like that, and you just kind of wander. So with those shows, though, I mean, like I said, they are more industrial. Most of the people that are there are going to be in the manufacturing industry. It's not just people that are making stuff in their garage, but at the same time, there were quite a few people there. I was actually surprised how many people were there to look at, the smaller tools that you would use in your individual shop rather than a production setting. So that was really cool.
But there's still a lot of benefit, I think, for brands like Onefinity to go to shows like that, because yeah, there's these big production shops, but you know, they have clients like everybody else, and they're, you know, on the one hand, they've got these huge machines that are the size of double wides, but at the same time, they're speccing things out with other clients, and they are trying to land on a design and get a contract set up. So like, rather than tying up a machine, one of their main machines that is already in use for a job that they already have, they're having to prototype stuff out. They're having to create samples and stuff. So a smaller machine would make sense in a bigger shop like that, just for the purpose of speccing things out and getting on, you know, landing on the same page with a client, to where you really only need one cabinet, one finished, or not cabinet necessarily, but one finished thing to be able to show a client, that, you know, that it's a lot easier to experiment and prototype and get that part of the process done with that client, rather than tie up their, you know, their gigantic main machine.
Yeah, it does. And in that way you can, like you said, you can be doing other things with your main machine. You're not tying it up. And also, like you said, a lot of times you're just making one of something. It's not just I have to make a bunch of these. It's not necessarily how you're going to make it exactly in production. It's just a proof of concept.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I think, you know, like primarily our customer base is hobbyists, and yeah, well, not necessarily just hobbyists, but people with small businesses and stuff. They're that those large shops, you know, people aren't running huge runs of stuff on our machines, but that is where a large shop like that could benefit from having a smaller machine in the shop. Is, you know, one person dedicated to dialing in a design and coming up with those proofs of concept to land on something, and, you know, potentially, you know, land a contract. By just having a good finished project that or finished product that they can present to a client.
And honestly, now that you've kind of brought this up and you got my mind thinking about it, I hadn't considered it, but you are exactly right, because I know of at least two people that I ran into at the show. I said you can't run into anybody at these shows, but like, I know you can, because I ran into people. So there's two people. I'm not going to name them, because I don't know if they want to be named. Screw it. I know one of them doesn't care. So Mike Coffey was there. Mike's a good buddy of ours. He's got a couple of larger 5x10 CNC machines that he's using for production stuff, but he also has a Onefinity. I believe he has a woodworker, elite machine that he is using off in the side, and he's using that for smaller stuff, for maybe some prototyping, but I know he's also using it for completely different stuff. Like, he's cutting sheet goods on his big machines, and he's using the Onefinity to mill brass and make hardware for his furniture, which is another really cool way that you can integrate a smaller machine to do a specific task in your production shop.
Yeah, because you don't want to tie up your gigantic machine for making drawer pulls.
Yeah, so he's cutting everything out of brass. You got a nice solid machine frame with a Onefinity, and you're not tying up your massive machines when you could be cutting sheet goods or whatever else it may be. And there's another person that I ran into who's in the exact same situation, where he's not making hardware necessarily, but he's using it for smaller projects and proof of concepts and things like that. So there are two sides to that coin, where, you know, there's a space for the larger machines and the smaller machines. They don't have to exist independently from each other. They can work together in some ways.
Yeah, for sure. So that one's in Atlanta, and that, you know, like I said, Workbench Con, we go to Workbench Con every year. I think this coming Workbench Con will be our third.
This will be our third.
Yeah, that'll be our third. Workbench Con is great, and that is at the I take it there's no weird dead mall attached to the
there's not. It is
the
a free
convention center that you were just at.
there's a hotel, but there's no creepy abandoned malls. So yeah.
So that is one of my favorite parts about Workbench Con. Workbench Con is that was essentially the first, aside from AWFS, that was the first like show that I went to, and it's not, I wouldn't call it a trade show. It's not a trade show. Because at a trade show, there's a bunch of different brands and a bunch of different companies showing off their products. This isn't really that. There are some brands there. There's not a whole lot, but it's more or less a gathering of, more or less, I mean, a gathering of content creators that are in a similar type of industry or a similar type of workspace. It's the maker community, whether it's I would say it's mostly woodworking. There's some metalwork people there. There's some, people who have other disciplines, but it's mostly the woodworking community and people who are trying to leverage and try to monetize the content that they make around their woodworking, to make a living around that. So it's less about the craft itself and more about, I don't know, more about the content aspect of making. So it's a secondary, craft around a primary craft of making. Which
I think that another big aspect of it is like the working with brands. So I know that's one thing that like a lot of people see someone, and it's usually pretty obvious if someone's working with the brand. It's not hard to tell. But being able to kind of learn how to see what those brands may be looking for in a content partnership, or learning how to ask certain questions or set yourself up for those kind of deals, because it's not always as straightforward as, hey, it's not always going to be like I reach out to somebody and be like, hey, do you want a CNC machine? That almost never happens. And most of the time when people reach out and they say, hey, give me a machine, that usually doesn't work out either. So kind of learning how to work around those deals and working with the companies and making sure that those relationships aren't just something that is an exchange, but like building a relationship around that. I think that is a lot of Workbench Con too.
Yeah. And so the only time that I've only ever been to Workbench Con one time where I wasn't officially representing a brand. So the first time that I went, the first couple times that I went, I was representing the brand that I used to work for at my old job. Again, not gonna name names, but
I saw them at IWF.
Oh, they were there. Yeah, was. Strangely, they always go to that. And the last time that I was actually available to go, they decided they weren't going to do it that year. Like
they just didn't want you to go.
Yeah, that's why I didn't go. But yeah, so the first two times that I went to Workbench Con, I was still working at my old job and representing another brand, and so there's a whole lot that's very loaded. There's a whole lot that goes with that. One. Even though we didn't have, sorry, that's like I could go on, like we could be here till tomorrow, so I'll try to keep it concise. But yes, even whether or not a brand has a booth there, or if they just have somebody that is there to represent them, just in attendance, usually you can tell who's there with a brand because like you would recognize them because they're the person that is kind of like outwardly publicly facing, talking about the brand all the time. So anyway, that's how I met a lot of the people in this community. Was the first year or two that I went to Workbench Con. I had been working with them remotely, just email and social media and stuff but I didn't actually meet anybody in person until I went to Workbench Con, and I had a heck of a time. It was a real uphill battle because people thought that my being there, I was just like a Billy Mays type character. Like people thought that was not actually a woodworker and didn't actually know anything about this. That I was just kind of like a like a brand representative and there in that capacity to be there to make deals and make connections and stuff. I'm like no, like I'm actually here because I am a woodworker and like it's not my thing personally to like be a content creator, but like that was like my main thing. That's the reason that I have the job that I have is because I'm a woodworker.
Mm-hmm.
And so it took a long time for people to actually understand that I was not just like
You weren't just a brand.
I wasn't just like a face for a brand. Like the reason that I worked for a brand was because I was a woodworker.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's where I met one of our super active beta testers, Ben Myers. I met him for the first time at Workbench Con, and that was super cool. And we've remained really, really good friends. And he's actually who was able to get me connected with the Onefinity folks.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate what you've done for me.
Yes, thank you, Ben.
You and me, Morgan.
Yes. So he's like the gatekeeper. He got me hooked up with Onefinity. But yeah, I mean, like a lot of the people that I would really consider like close personal friends at this point, I met at Workbench Con, and just from that first, I think the first year that I went was 2019. Just maintain relationships with those people since then, and it's been a crazy journey. Like the community, I think, between Workbench Con and Maker Camp is in full force at those two events.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good little transition. So we've kind of covered Workbench Con is more of a content creators and working with brands. That is the focus of Workbench Con.
Did you like that segue?
I did like that segue. That was very nice.
One more thing to add about Workbench Con, and this is really unrelated to, and it's just kind of a tangent. Workbench Con is at a beautiful hotel and conference convention center, but it is attached to a weird dead mall. That if you've ever been there in the Atlanta area, check out this mall. It will creep you out, and just explore it like in the middle of the night. It's super fun. It's called the Cobb Galleria something
like that. Yeah. Cobb Galleria. That's definitely part of it. But it's
like they built this mall in the
Renaissance
70s
Hotel.
and they just decided they were never ever going to update it ever. And that's just what it's like.
There's some weird stuff in those windows.
Yeah, I love it there. So Workbench Con. It is a great place to meet the people that you interact with on the internet all the time in person and actually get to hang out with them.
And if nothing else, you get to go look at a cool, creepy old mall. So definitely check out Workbench Con.
Yeah. Sorry, I dragged us back into that for
it's okay.
There wasn't much of a payoff for that, but
there wasn't, but it was important to you. So I'm proud of you for speaking up. So
well, thanks, Stone.
So as Morgan alluded to a minute ago, Maker Camp. That's another one of the shows that we've done in the past. We're going to be doing again later this year, coming up middle of October. But Maker Camp is very different, wouldn't you say? I mean, it's not at all about content creation or really working with brands. You're just there to learn new skills and hone in on your craft, right?
Yeah, it's I love the vibe. I love the spirit of Maker Camp. It's a lot of the same people, but the purpose to be there is completely different from Workbench Con. Workbench Con is very structured, and you're talking about, there's classes, everybody talking about different ways to kind of give you an edge in your career if you are a maker and content creator. This has none of those elements at all. It's really just, if you are a maker, come here and make stuff.
Yeah.
And like, I think there's a lot of encouragement to make something that's outside of your normal discipline. Like if you're a woodworker, there's a lot of, and everything is very accessible. So people that their main discipline is woodworking, they'll spend the entire weekend over in the blacksmithing tents, or welding stuff. Like,
good story to tell about the blacksmithing tent too. So we'll get to that, but
yeah, you spent a decent amount of time up there.
Yeah.
But I love how, I don't want to say unstructured it is, because that I feel like that carries a negative connotation. But it's not as structured as Workbench Con. I mean, it's really just like, it's organized, but it's just like, everybody just come, pick something that you want to make, go to the tent and just do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like as a maker, that is that's refreshing, and that's really captures the spirit of a maker, is just go out there and just stretch your limits and make something.
So I want to talk a little bit about the organization, because being on the back end of that and being on the other side, we're not just, obviously, as an individual, you buy your ticket, you figure out where you're going to stay, and you just show up. With being a brand and having a booth, being an exhibitor, it's a little bit different. So just to kind of like provide some insight, I guess, it is very organized. Morgan's not saying that it's not organized. So this thing started getting set up for this year. I literally got an email on like January, the second week of January. So it is set up in a way so that everything is organized and done so that you don't have to be organized and have like a specific game plan. You go into this weekend and it almost feels like, and tell me if you feel the same way, Morgan, but it almost feels like you're getting to summer camp when you show up, because everybody's just kind of like walking around camp and checking stuff out. And, you run into your old friends and everybody gets excited and you run and you hug each other. And like it has a summer camp vibe to it, but at the same time, go ahead.
I feel like I may have just misrepresented.
No, and I don't think you do. I just want to make sure that they understand what you're trying to say, because I think I get what you're saying, but I don't. So
there's no it's not as scheduled. There's basically like there's a beginning of the day that they tell the vendors or the brands that are have a booth there, hey, be at your booth by this time in the morning, and then by this time at night, there's that you're pretty much done. Exactly. But other than that, I mean, everybody else just they're not given a schedule. There's not a class schedule. They just walk around and just are free to explore what interests them.
Exactly.
In that given moment or that given hour, like they just are free to explore their interests in making.
So I think from like, it's usually, I want to say it's 8 or 9 in the morning kind of is when the time everybody gets out there and starts getting going. But
which is amazing to me, because everybody is
it's crazy
awake till like 4 or 5.
Yeah. So makers, they know how to keep going somehow. I don't know what it is, but
commune. We prefer the term. We are adept at communing.
Yeah, but I mean, even when you commune till 4 in the morning and then you get up and you do it all over again for 3 straight days, it's pure.
I'll tell you what it is. It is pure adrenaline. It is the thrill of, because like the community, this maker community, like we just like there's such love in this community, right? So like we see our friends that we talk to on the internet and only get to see once or twice a year if we're lucky. And so when you actually are in the same place at the same event with them for a couple days, you'll sacrifice sleep, you will sacrifice eating, I mean, you're enjoying spending time with these people. I mean, because it's it really, really is a community that loves each other and cares for and about each other. And I think that it's pure adrenaline that keeps it going.
But like being able to go and basically from 8 or 9 in the morning, everybody's starting up and you have all day to go around. And like Morgan said, you have welding, you have blacksmithing,
there's leather work,
you have leather work, you have CNC, you have jewelry making. Last year, there was a flint knapping tent where you can go and make arrowheads and spearheads and stuff like that. Power carving. You've got, I don't even know what else. There's so many things. Epoxy. Total Boat has a big old tent that they'll have all sorts of epoxy projects. And then there's things
in our tent. There was I mean, everybody just using like straight up, just like draw knives, chisels, and
they were making axe handles.
Yeah, they were making hatchet and axe handles. And when it stormed real bad that one day and they started cutting power to all the tents, who had the last laugh? Mm-hmm. The hand tool guys.
Yeah.
Because they were still rolling. We shut down our machines because there was it was like ankle deep water just flowing under the machine. And so they started going around and being like, hey, it's not safe to have power running right now. So they started shutting down power to the tents, but the hand tool guys, they just kept going. They kept making axe handles.
Yep. That's the one thing about Maker Camp is you literally are out in a field in the middle of the woods, in the middle of the Catskill Mountains. So it's not like you have a nice shop that's all, heated and cooled. Now, thankfully, being in upstate New York, that time of year, the weather is usually really nice. And I've been promised, Austin, who his family owns the camp and he puts on the show every year. He has told me yesterday on the phone, actually, we're getting some things squared away. And he said he's certain it is not going to rain this year. So
I appreciate the spirit, but it is way too far ahead to tell.
I don't know. I told him, I said, don't jinx us, man.
But so, yeah, I mean, I think we pretty well covered the, I don't know, just like the general feel and the general spirit of Maker Camp. One thing, and I'm still just like floating on air. Think about it. So like I've been, since I started.
Where are you going?
Yeah, he knows where I'm going with this. Since I started making stuff, most people learn. Everything that I know, I learned from YouTube, and so most people, that I feel like that same goes for a lot of people. And so somebody that I followed and learned a lot from is Jimmy DeRessa, and Maker Camp is like the brainchild of Jimmy DeRessa. He lives locally where they have Maker Camp, and I got to meet Jimmy at Maker Camp, and I actually got to visit his shop, which was just like the coolest thing in the world. I was just like stunned. It's like where you're like speechless, you just can't say anything and you act super awkward. Like, I don't feel like I'm normally, no, actually I am pretty awkward, but more so in that situation, just because it was like, holy crap, I'm in Jimmy DeRessa's shop right now. This is insane.
And
but he is a very nice guy, and he's super gracious, and he's very welcoming and awesome to just put on this show every year.
I'm so disappointed. I was so disappointed. I texted Morgan and I was like, where are you? And he's like, I'm at Jimmy's. I couldn't find you. And I was distraught.
I was so like, well, he was like, he invited me over.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, I would love to come. I don't have transportation. I flew in, Ubered in, so I don't. And he was like, all right, well, you can hop in the truck, and he was like heading back to his house, like right then. And I was like, well, I'm here with somebody, and I was like, I looked around, I tried to call you, and I was like,
there's no hard feelings. It was just.
I was like,
it was so disappointing. I picked the worst possible time to run to the bathroom, which of course was not close.
I was like, I can't. I tried to get you. I was like, I was like, all right, well, I'll just have to catch up with them when I get back.
It's okay. And it's not that it was this great. A lot of people go to Jimmy's shop as part of
it wasn't like an
kind of part of the experience.
He pretty much has an open door policy.
The thing about it was Morgan just happened to be there, and was this right after you gave him your stool sample?
Yes, I gave Jimmy DeResta a stool sample that I made.
That sounds disgusting, so I've got to explain it. But we cut. Morgan made a flat pack stool, and we actually made some miniature versions of that. So he was handing them out to people, saying, "Would you like a stool sample?" And
yeah, it's not the
Jimmy
whole
got
thing.
really tickled.
Just sample.
So, anyways, all of that to tell you, if you give Jimmy a stool sample, he will invite you to his house. Don't quote me on that.
I'm going to quote you on that. It's on record now.
But yeah, Maker Camp, general synopsis, it is from early in the morning till around dinner time.
Till early in the morning.
But really it is, because like last year, I know there was the first night, the blacksmithing tent, they literally just stayed open all night from like, everybody's kind of wrapping up at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., somewhere around there, goes and eats dinner. Well, these guys literally just went all night. So, it's in the middle of nowhere. So you can do that if you really want to. If you want to get into something and you want to spend all night working on it and learning from the experts that are there, you can do that too. But really, it's a chance to come to learn something new, to improve upon a skill, and to catch up with your buddies in the woodworking community.
Yeah, and I think the latter, that last part, is probably the main reason most people go. Like you can make, like I said, most people learn everything that they know on YouTube. If you've never made an axe handle, you want to make an axe handle, you get on YouTube. I think most people go to that show to reconnect and commune with all the people that they only get to see a couple times a year.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. Like some people only get a week off of work a year, and they use that week to go to Maker Camp. Mm-hmm. That's how important it is to some people. So,
and you don't even have to take a full week off, because it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So
yeah, but I feel like definitely Workbench Con, but like Maker Camp too, it's people are starting to kind of extend those trips and make them into like more of like a 4, 5, 6 day kind of event. They're just like, oh, I flew in a couple days early because a couple of the people are going to be there, and other people find out and they're like, oh, there's a pre-party. I'm gonna go too. Yeah. And so now it's just kind of, both of those have become like week-long events, which I think is great.
It is. So
I wrote down some of the shows that we go to. I don't want us to drone on for too long, especially for anyone listening who goes to these shows. We're just telling them things that they already know.
That's true. There's 2 more shows in particular I'm thinking of, but I'll let you go ahead and mention.
So the other 2 shows I can think of are the Texas Woodworking Festival. Mm-hmm. We went to that one last year. That was out in Austin, Texas. Mm-hmm. Austin is great.
It's weird.
Keep Austin weird. Or is that Portland?
No, it's Austin.
It's Austin. What is Portland has a similar slogan, don't they?
I don't know. I just know growing up,
like Portland, we're weird.
Growing up in Texas, being a native Texan, that's one thing I know is like, no matter where you're from, everyone knows keep Austin weird because that's where the weirdos in Texas are.
Yeah. So that particular week, I think as Workbench Con or as Texas Woodworking Festival was winding down, the Bat Festival was winding.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so they have a bat festival every year to celebrate the fact that there's a bunch of bats in Austin and that they're pumped about it. And I think that's cool in and of itself.
But yeah, the Texas Woodworking Festival, it's more of your traditional kind of trade show, I guess, where you're going to go and you're going to see a bunch of different brands set up with their booths where they're running demos, and some of those you can get some hands-on experience. Obviously, we can't let you, run a CNC with thousands of people around, but we will be running the CNC. We did last year, and we're just, running files, making projects so that you can kind of see what it's capable of, and seeing how all of the tools that you're going to see at the show, the different types of woodworking that are done. There's a lot of individuals that set up booths as well with their small businesses and sell their products. So it's more of your traditional walk through the show, see the products, talk to the brands, and get a little more info before you go home and make your purchase. That type of show.
Yeah. And it was a great show. We were sandwiched in between
Surf Prep and JTech.
Surf Prep and JTech last year. And both of those brands, we're personally friends. We have personal friendly relationships with both of those people. It's cool. The longer that we're not that old of a company, but the longer that we are in this space, we've formed relationships. We have the people that we work with in this industry, we're just friends with, whether we had any business dealings with them or not, they're just great people. Mm-hmm. And so that's always fun to, we go to these shows sometimes just to, well, not just to spend time with, spend time with them. We're there to work. But Jay of JTech, he had a booth at Texas Woodworking Festival. He came out to Workbench Con. He didn't have a booth. He just came to hang out.
Yeah, he brought a laser, and he still did some demos at the Onefinity booth. But really, it's just about collaborating with other people, and that helps not just with big brands, but with small businesses too. You're cross promoting and kind of tapping into each other's markets. So that definitely helps. I know last year at the Texas Woodworking Festival, like Morgan said, we were sandwiched between JTech and Surf Prep, with JTech obviously being our laser partner who makes all of the lasers for the Onefinity. But Surf Prep, they provided a vacuum for us. So obviously being inside, you got to have dust collection. So that was a big part of our setup too, was having Surf Prep in the booth with us. So it's also cool to see how brands work together and how you can use different products with each other. So
for sure. So anyway, so if you were I feel like a lot of shows are based out in the actually at Workbench Con there was a map where people could put their sticker or whatever of where they are from, and so many people are from the East Coast. It doesn't so few people are from the other side of that continental divide, on the other side of the Rockies. And so a lot of stuff happens, furthest west is the Midwest, but a lot of stuff happens on the East Coast. And so it was really good to get out to the western side of the continent and, meet some Texans, and, because there's a lot of action in Texas that for whatever reason, those guys don't come over to the East Coast a whole lot. So it's good to see all of them. Austin's cool. They have a ton of bats. I've never seen so many bats in all my life. and I was horrified at how many bats there were. But other than that, great town, fun show.
Yeah. And then the last show I kind of want to mention, because it's a different type of show, would be the Vectric user group meeting. So I've done 2 of these now. They switch every other year. One year it'll be in person, and then I guess even years it's in person, odd years it's online. So in what's this year? It's 2024. So in 2022, we went down to San Diego, and we went to the Vectric user group meeting, where it's basically just Vectric puts on a weekend conference where they bring all of their staff over to the US, because that's where the majority of their customers are. And they pick a big city, and for 3 days, it's just classes where you can learn how to use the new tools from their software. You can learn things about their old tools, but you can really just go and meet with other people that are using their software. You can learn, and you can also go and interact with some of the brands that Vectric is working with, including Onefinity. Sadly, we will not be there this year because it is booked for the same weekend as Maker Camp. But last year, I even did a presentation for them. So it was terrifying. It was my first real presentation.
Public speaking.
Yeah, thing. Well, it's not the public speaking. I can talk to anybody, but having to go up and have a rehearsed thing where I'm showing people how to do something that has to be done exactly a specific way, because if it's not, then my whole project doesn't work. And then
welcome to my world. I showed somebody, I put up a video about how to do something on Vectric. If it is not to the T, I don't hear the end of it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So one of those, but I was making it for the company that made the software. Right. So to say it was nerve-wracking was an understatement, but I did it. I had one thing that I could have done differently, and someone obviously pointed it out. But it is what it is. And to make matters worse, when I did that presentation, when it was an online one. It was last year. I was actually on a flight from Charlotte, North Carolina, up to Albany, New York, to go to Maker Camp when my presentation was. So I did a pre-recording, and then I ended up trying to join the live from the plane with little success, but it worked out. So if I can do it, you guys can do it. Needless to say, most of you probably aren't going to make a presentation for Vectric, but I would encourage you to check out shows like that too, so that you can go and learn to use that resource to better benefit your business.
So from there, there's a couple other minor shows. I would call them more or less one-offs, not really worth talking about. You did go over to England to Maker Central. That's cool.
That was a cool show.
Kind of jealous about that.
So Maker Central is, how do I explain it honestly? It is a woodworking show, yes. But it also had almost kind of like a Comic-Con vibe. It was like Comic-Con for YouTubers, if that makes sense, UK YouTubers. So there were several different woodworking tool companies there. The reason I went was because both of our software partners, Vectric and Carveco, both had pretty substantial setups over there, big booths, and they were the 2 main sponsors of the show. So I went and spent some time with both of them in their booths, where they both had Onefinity set up. So I was the Onefinity guy, as I am at all shows, I guess. But I was there to talk about Onefinity and kind of give the UK market some more info, because it's not as, they don't have as much space. They don't have a lot of the same resources that we have available to us here. So the woodworking community over there is really, really close knit, but also they love getting together for stuff like that, because there's a big community, but they don't have all of the shows that we have, So it was really cool to get to see some of the stuff they did. Like I said, there was a ton of woodworking stuff, a lot of big name YouTubers who are making crazy projects and doing that regularly. Like I said, software companies, but honestly, this was the coolest thing was they had some droid builders. So like Star Wars droids, but like fully functional. So, getting bumped by R2D2 and then he'd turn around and run away like he did nothing. That's fun. But it just goes to show you like the maker community is everywhere, and people want to get together and they want to see what everybody's doing. But I really think that that's what shows are so important for, is because if you're sitting in your shop or your garage by yourself all the time doing your thing, like that's good. That's good to work on your product and to improve your business. But at the same time, like being able to interact with people in that space is equally as important, I feel.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Stone really hit the nail on the head with that. Like, going to these shows is so valuable. You don't realize how valuable it is to just physically be with a group of people that you care about until you're actually with them. So like one analogy I heard one time was like, if you pull there's like a hot bed of coals. If you pull one ember out of the fire, it will just turn black. It will go from red to black almost instantly. You put it back in, turns red again. And it's being in that space and staying in that space and being in proximity, I think, keeps you inspired and keeps you connected, not just with the other makers in the community, but also with brands. And if that's something that you aspire to do is work with brands in this space, one great way to do that is to go to shows and talk to them. And we could do a whole episode on how to approach a brand that you want to work with. And that's actually probably, let's talk about that later, because that would be a great episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a good way to do it and there's a not good way to do it.
Absolutely.
And I've seen both. And unfortunately I've done both. It's something that can be learned, but it's not it wouldn't be in any effort to like shame anybody or make anybody embarrassed, but really actual advice about like, what brands expect or are looking for when somebody wants to work with them.
I know just the guests that we're going to have on too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's plan this one out. Now that we've got a couple episodes under our belt, we're starting to think about it more. It's just kind of more like top of mind. And so now we're just kind of like in the middle of the day, randomly coming up with ideas for future episodes. So now we're starting to plan ahead. And exactly. I guess it's just how these things work. But yeah, we're excited about it. What was I going to say? Oh, all that to say, so these are sorry.
No, you're good.
Guys, I'm off my bed.
Welcome to the inside of our brains. It's a scary place.
Welcome to me. So all that to say, so these are the shows that we go to and we go to regularly. But I know that there are more shows out there and we want to go to more shows. We want to meet you guys. We want to get out there and get involved. So for anybody who's listening, what are we missing? What's a good show to go to?
Yeah. So one thing that we definitely want to do is go to more shows. So we would love for you to leave a comment wherever you are listening to this podcast. If you
be on MySpace.
If you cannot leave a comment wherever you are listening, send an email to. Trying to decide where I want these to go to. Send an email to support@onefinitycznc.com if you have any suggestions on shows you'd like to see Morgan and myself at for Onefinity in the future. and we'll see what we can do to make that happen for you.
So I hear there's a great show in Cancun every spring. So, we might just get an anonymous email about a great woodworking show in Cancun every spring.
That would be great. I would
That's
love
just a hunch. I don't know.
But yeah, so that's it. That's it for today. We hope you enjoyed this, but we really encourage you to cut them off.
Everyone's like, I got a hard stop. No,
I just realized
we've said quite enough, and I think it's time to go.
I think we've covered more than enough, and I saw that we just passed an hour, and I was like, these people don't want to listen to us go on for an hour. So
you'd be surprised. I could listen to you read the phone book.
Hey, that my prospective guest that I was just referring to literally just texted me. So
yeah, we're
going to get on that. But really, check out the shows that are around you, even the ones that aren't around you, maybe. If you have the resources to do it, you definitely won't regret it. No matter what you do, even if you're just going and walking around for a couple of days at the show, you're sure to meet some cool people and to make some connections in this community that will more than likely last a long, long time.
Yeah, for sure. So this is an amazing community. And whether you've met somebody or not, like, you go to these things, you're going to meet people and you're going to become friends.
Exactly.
Just for out of commonality. Just it's beautiful. So I think that's it. Stone, you wrapped it up pretty well.
That's all I got for you guys.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. I guess, since we've already talked about it, next episode, we're going to talk about a burning question that there's a lot. We talked about it earlier, but if you're just joining us, it's kind of a weird time to join us because it's the end of the episode. But we're going to be talking about
not live.
Is CNC actually woodworking? That's going to be the topic next one. So make sure
not just our opinions. We want to hear from
you. We're trying to be as impartial as possible, although it's difficult to do so. We are going to be impartial, and we just trying to get to the bottom of it, But I think that's it for today. Thank you guys for listening. You'll be good.
Your just real quick, your response to this podcast has been awesome and incredible, and we are seriously so thankful for you guys supporting us, and we're excited to keep this going. So thank you guys for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
All right, I'm gonna have to cut that because I already delivered the closing line. So
nope.
Bye guys, thanks for listening.
All right, y'all be good.
Gather around, it's time to play. We've got stories for your day. From Onefinity, it's clear to see the finest CNC. It's the Cutting Edge Podcast. Let's take a flight with designs and tools that ignite. From wood to steel, we peel and reveal the art of making done just right. Tips and tricks that elevate, craftsmanship that's first rate. Join the fun, we've just begun, the cutting edge awaits. On this journey side by side, hear the stories far and wide. From dream to deed with utmost speed, where passion takes its stride. It's the Cutting Edge Podcast. Let's take a flight with designs and tools that ignite. From wood to steel, we peel and reveal the art of making done just right.